The chair recognizes Steve Cohen of Memphis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does anybody on the panel feel like it was a mistake for the United States Senate to apologize for lynching? Anybody think, Mr. Clegg, you think it was a mistake to apologize for lynching when we didn't know the lynchers, the lynchees, et cetera?
Well, I'm trying to remember the specific facts, Congressman Cohen, at the time. Now, of course, the Senate was apologizing on behalf of itself. Is that correct?
No, I think it was apologizing on behalf of the country. I don't think any senators did much lynching. There were a few people
well,
who
I do have
should
a
have been
problem
lynched,
with that,
but no.
I do have a problem with that, then.
You
yes.
do? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with the United States having...
And not because I think that, that
oh, I understand
lynching was not a horrible person, but I think
that
in order to apologize, for me to apologize for something, it has to have been, in some sense, my fault. Otherwise,
it's the nation's fault.
Apology.
The nation permitted it to go on. The nation acts for all of us. It's the cumulative deal.
But see, to say that America now is going to apologize for things that individuals did some time ago, and
permitted
which,
by the government,
could have been stopped had the Senate been more aggressive. But as I say in my testimony, I think that kind of apology is understood, unfortunately, as being an apology by some individuals because of actions done by other individuals with whom they have nothing in common except for the color of their skin. And I think that is inconsistent with the with the principles that I was talking about earlier.
How about the apology that we asked the Japanese government to give for having used comfort women in China? The House passed that unanimously. Was that a mistake?
Again, I'm not familiar with the specifics.
All right, let's stop it there, because I've heard your responses. We do have a limited amount of time. Was it a mistake for us to apologize to the Japanese we interred in World War II?
Well, now there, again, I assume that it depends on whose behalf the apology was.
The country,
the United States
nation.
government did the interning. And so for the United States government to apologize, I think would have been appropriate.
All right, in slavery, the United States government permitted slavery, made it legal, and while Mr. King's relatives, whoever they were, might have lost their lives in the war, and God bless them for participating, for 100 years thereafter, they made people unequal citizens. They couldn't get the same lawyer job as you got. They couldn't get the same business job as some white person got. And for 100 years, we perpetuated that racism and that badge of slavery. It was a second-class slavery.
Well, when you say we,
we're a country.
Well, again, I don't think that I don't look at it that way. And I think that the way that the bill is drafted, it suggests that one of the things that this Commission is supposed to think about is whether an apology on behalf of the United States government, by the United States government on behalf of the American people and then it doesn't say to whom the apology is supposed to be made. And I think that each step there raises a lot of questions. The United States government...
Professor Clegg, we've got a limited amount of time. I'm going to stop you because I know where you're going, and we can get Ann Landers or somebody to help us with who the apology should be made to. That's formalities. It's the big picture.
Well, I think
big
it's pretty
picture
important.
Is what's important. Let me ask the bishop a question. Jesus was Jewish, was he not?
He was.
And so he would have done Passover, would he not?
He would have.
And at Passover, don't the Jews, and they still do it to this day, look back upon the time they were in bondage and reflect upon it and say we should always be against putting people in bondage and have concerns about people that were in slavery?
Yes, and I think it's a message that's repeated by the prophets in the Hebrew Scripture over and over again.
And so, it's kind of a hackneyed thing, so it's a tough thing to come up with, but what do you think Jesus would think about slavery? Would he have thought somewhere 1865 years later, somebody forgot about the Passover Seder and the Passover lessons, and how would he have dealt with that?
Part of our baptismal covenant in the Episcopal Church is to respect the dignity of every human being, and that part of our covenant comes directly from the teachings of Jesus, and Jesus' continual reminder to all of us that we should never forget, that always we should be calling from remembrance into reality.
I, as a Jewish person, find the Passover service to be my favorite holiday. It's got great eats, and it's also got a great story. And it's got the story of the Jews having been enslaved, and to forever after remember and never forget about other people who were enslaved. And I think that's part of what this is about. And, there's differences on this panel on the theory of abortion, but I find it very difficult, as a Jewish person whose ancestors were killed and enslaved during the Holocaust, and as a person who represents many, many, many African Americans who were enslaved and killed along the passage to America, in America as slaves, and then continually through Jim Crow kept as second-class citizens. One thing is, the issue about choice in Roe v. Wade is the freedom of a woman to make a decision concerning an embryo, and the other is the decision of a powerful government to kill and take freedom away. One gives freedom, whether you think the person should have it or not. The other takes freedom and life away. And I think it's difficult to juxtaposition the two. In the Jewish religion, which Jesus was, life wasn't considered beginning until birth, because so many children were aborted naturally. And to save the woman and the father from having the angst of the lost child, that the child wasn't considered a child in being until birth.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.